All right, welcome to the 8th edition of our 11 Days of Remembrance here leading up to Remembrance Day. Nick Nielsen along with the curator of the Southeast Military Museum, Craig Burden. Today we're talking about this particular uniform that is on the left of the screen here.
Yeah, so we have a uniform here for a soldier, Private Duncan Ching, who was out of the Frobisher area. We've got a little bit of a family history. Actually, the family did up a history book, and they have a little bit of history of Mr. Ching and where he served throughout the war. Fortunately, he was able to come back after the war. He had joined in late 1918, or early 1918, ended up going over to England and was training over there, and before he could get over to France to take part in the fighting, the war had ended. So actually didn't take part in any combat, fortunately, but was able to serve and came back to Canada and lived here in the Frobisher area and farmed for most of his life. And the interesting thing about Mr. Ching is I do have a photograph and his original uniform that were donated to the Legion. But the gentleman to the right as well also served in the same unit during the same time from the opposite end of the province.
Oh, really?
My wife's grandfather also served in the same unit and trained at the same time, so the likelihood that they knew each other was pretty good. So they went over on the same ship and served over in England, and again, fortunately they didn't have to go into combat in France because the war ended, and were repatriated back to Canada.
And that's one thing that I've learned over the last few lessons that we've done here is that, yes, this whole military museum is dedicated towards the Southeast, but there's so many connections across the country. We talked about the last time some connections to the units in Ontario. Now we're talking about personal connections between families from opposite sides of the province.
Yeah, and you can't get away with it, and that's the whole purpose of the museum is to remember all of these guys. And part of my joy of doing all of this stuff is just finding all these personal connections and personal histories to a lot of the families that were from this area, because they are outreaching. You look at some of the people that served, and they aren't from the units that were drawn out of this area. They ended up going in as reinforcements or getting transferred to other units throughout Canada. So there's a lot of history. Saskatchewan, and particularly the Southeast, has a lot of military history that we can be proud of.
Absolutely, and we've learned a lot of that so far, and we're going to learn a little bit more of that coming up soon here. So thanks again for tuning in to another episode of our 11 Days of Remembrance. Craig, thank you for the lesson as well. We'll have a couple more for you, including one tomorrow on discoverestevan.com.